welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries, and in my 18th RPG a day video I'm going to be talking about my favourite science fiction RPG, and I hope you'll gather from this GM screen of subtle hints in front of me that my favourite science fiction RPGs at the moment are the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars core books. Now, I've not actually done a review of these yet, but I am intending to in the near future. Although I have done a written review of the latest one, Force and Destiny, in my blog that I'll put a link to down below in the description. But essentially, Fantasy Flight Games have released a series of 3 core books, each focusing on different areas of the Star Wars universe. The first to be released was Edge of Empire, which deals with playing the sort of fringes, the people on the edge of the law, the bounty hunters, the scum of the universe, the independents, trying to make their way in a world that's torn between the conflict of the Empire and the Rebellion. Which moves us neatly on to the second book, Age of Rebellion, which pits the players as rebels fighting to help overthrow the monolithic empire that reaches out its hand to grasp the universe in an iron grip. And the third and final one, which has just been released, is Force and Destiny, which has the players portraying Force users on the run from the Empire who seeks to either destroy or convert to the dark side any users of the Force, seeking to prevent the Jedi from ever rising from the ashes. Now, each of these games uses the same innovative dice mechanic. I'll go into a bit more detail about this in the reviews I put up later, but essentially you make a dice pool out of a number of skill dice. You add, these are like positive dice, and then you add a number of negative dice on it depending on the difficulty or any circumstances that would make things more difficult for you. Each of the dice has a variety of symbols on them, but essentially you add up the number of successes on your positive dice, subtract the number of failures on your negative dice when you roll them, and if you still have successes left at the end, you've succeeded. And there are a few extra symbols which allow you to spend them to accomplish various additional tasks. For instance, you might roll a number of triumphs and fail the roll, but you still get some advantageous circumstance out of it. So for instance, you might be spotted by the stormtrooper and he snaps off a shot at you, but because you spend your triumph, you're able to locate some cover and dive behind it, and you spot that the object you're seeking is actually just in the corridor behind it. Each of the games posits a number of careers, or I suppose classes, that the characters can go into, such as bounty hunter, colonist, consular, things like that. And each of these is flavoured for the specific game, whether it be mercenaries and independents, soldiers of the rebellion fighting against the Empire, or Force users. And each of these has a number of subdivisions in there, and a number of talent trees which go with them. And you buy these talents using a budget of XP that you get at the start based on your race. And you sort of follow them down the trees in a way that will be very familiar to anyone who has ever played like an MMO or something like that. Initially, the books do look a bit daunting and very rulesy. They're not exactly the slimmest of tomes. However, mostly this is just because the books give so many examples to try and ease you into the rule system, which is, I think, a very good thing. And the system, once you've actually played it a few times, I mean, we're just about to do session 4 this weekend of our Edge of the Empire campaign, and we're all starting to get into the rules, and we're starting to find it a bit more intuitive now without too many difficulties. So I highly recommend you give it a look, and don't be put off by the fact that it seems quite rulesy. The other thing is, of course, that these books aren't cheap at all. In fact, they're fairly expensive. But that's to be expected. After all, Fantasy Flight Games are known for producing very beautiful books. And as you can see, all of these are hardcover. They're full colour. Every page is colour. There's loads of full colour and beautiful artwork spread throughout the 3 books. My only slight gripe would be, to be honest with them, and it's only a very minor one, is that in each of the core books the main rules are pretty much identical, give and take a few tweaks, which means that if you buy all 3 of them, as I've done, then you have a lot of redundant and duplicated information. I would have far preferred to have seen them bring out a main book with just the rules in, and then produce supplements that added the extra stuff on. However, it does mean that if you only want to run Edge of Empire, or you're only interested in running Force and Destiny or Age of Rebellion, that you only need to buy the 1 book. So I see there's both an upside and a downside to this. But why do I love the games? Well, I love the games because they really do capture that feeling of the Star Wars universe for me. It's high action, high octane space opera with a little bit of fantasy thrown in there for good measure, and the books really do capture that feeling, especially with the narrative dice system that they've introduced that encourages you to think about dice rolls as more than just a binary success or failure result. The game encourages you to build an entire narrative based on the symbols that you roll on the dice, and that really does help me get into the fast-flowing, action-packed nature of the Star Wars universe. So there we go. If you're at all interested in Star Wars, then I highly suggest you give these bad boys a look if you can afford them. They also offer a basic game for each of these, which is available, and you can get apps that allow you to roll the special narrative dice if you don't want to shell out on new dice, or you want to try those out first. So I'd highly recommend you give it a look. So that's my favourite science fiction RPG, the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars selection. I hope you've enjoyed this video. You'll click on the red dice to subscribe to my channel, and give it a thumbs up if you liked it, a thumbs down if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.